Much for joining me. The death of Douglas MacArthur McCain, the American killed in Syria while fighting for ISIS, is renewing fears that not only are Americans helping militants overseas, but that they could be returning to the United States to launch attacks within our borders. It is also sparking questions about how this brutal group, ISIS, could amass so much power, taking over large parts of northern Iraq, including key cities and oil fields, while the United States seem to be unaware of its rise. Here to talk about that, Republican Senator Dan Coats of Indiana and Lee Hamilton, the former co-chair of the 9/11 Commission. Welcome, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. Lee, I want to start with you. Given the U.S. experiences on 9/11 and with al-Qaeda, how is ISIS's rise possible?
Well, it's pretty hard to explain, actually. I think several factors contributed to it. This is a region in enormous turmoil. Everywhere you look, America has problems. There is great division, sectarian, religious, ethnic divisions, warlords all over the place, enormous chaos in the region. It is not possible to cover everybody, every group, everywhere, all the time. U.S. intelligence has remarkable capabilities, but it isn't any doubt that ISIS kind of surprised us. And they have become much more of a power than we would have anticipated a few months ago. It also relates to the structure of ISIS. ISIS is a very decentralized organization. You don't have a headquarters. Until recently, we didn't even know who the leaders were. So it's not an easy intelligence target to hit. You mentioned they've taken over a vast amount of territory, and they have. But it's mostly desert. There's only been a few targets that they have succeeded at, and we need to know a lot more about them than we do now. We've been slow to get there, but I think we're getting there pretty fast to learn a lot about this dangerous group.
I hope so. Senator, you say it's likely that ISIS is already within the United States. If that's true, what steps should our government be taking now?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the comments of Lee Hamilton, a great friend and colleague, who's with a wealth of experience in terms of foreign policy issues, and I plan on drawing on him as we try to work through this tangled mess of things in the Middle East. And he's right. It is just overwhelming in terms of the problems and the policies that have to be enacted to give us some kind of a strategy as to how best to address this. Your direct question, however, is what do we do about those United States citizens that have ended up over there fighting for ISIS and have easy entree back to the United States? I think we have to look very carefully at our visa waiver program in terms of how it's currently constructed and define a way in which we can at least address those that we know and those that we suspect might, and they need to be treated in a different way in terms of entree to the United States. More security, more testing and checking at the entry points to protect ourselves. Britain and London has the same, France, Germany, these countries have the same problem, and it's something that we need to work together on, I think, with a coordinated policy.
And what you're talking about, Senator, just to be clear, so if an American is traveling to Syria, for example, when they come back, they should undergo extra security at the airport?
That's what I'm thinking. If we can identify those, and I think we have to be aware of that ISIS threat and take it seriously, that they're bringing it to our shores. We need to be aware of that and put the protections in. Visa waiver is a way to avoid a lot of that check and security for people who come from certain countries or hold citizenship in these countries. And I don't know the exact answer to this. It expedites travel, of course, but in another way, we now face a significant threat here in the United States, and we have to find a way to separate out that examination before we allow people back into the United States that we suspect might have a connection over there with ISIS.
And Lee, many analysts say that the United States underestimated the threat of ISIS. Why do you suppose that happened? We know that the United States perhaps underestimated the strength of al-Qaeda because, you know, the CIA didn't share information with our branches of government. Is the same sort of thing happening now with ISIS?
These are very difficult intelligence targets. Did we underestimate them? Yes, of course we did. Were there a lot of mistakes made? I don't really know. But keep in mind, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of groups in this region. all of whom have their own axes to grind. And this one was able, ISIS was able to put together the components, the money, the skills, the manpower fairly quickly, and we were slow to catch it. But we have caught it now, and the important thing now is what should our policy be? Dan Coates, whom I respect and admire, said correctly that we really don't have a strategy at this point as to how to deal with them. What kind of resources are we prepared to put into the effort in that region to deter, to contain, to eliminate, to defeat ISIS? I've heard those verbs, those words used by everybody. We're all over the place in trying to describe what our policy is. That needs to be focused, and we need to make up our mind how we're going to deal with this threat, not just in the United States, as Dan was talking about, but in the region itself.
So, Senator, you heard what Lee says. We have to decide what resources we're willing to use to fight ISIS, and that may include boots on the ground. Would you be in favor of that?
You know, there's a number of things that need to be done, but the first thing has to be a clarity of what our strategy is going to be. This has to come from the President and the executive branch. Congress, it should be brought to Congress and talked about, and Congress, I think, needs to give approval to whatever plan is proposed, but we don't know what that plan is. There's a lot of confusion going on here in terms of how we should best respond, and we're waiting for the executive branch, the President, the Commander-in-Chief, to bring us something, and so that we can discuss this, so we can evaluate it. And I think he needs the support of the American people if we're going to be successful with this, and I would urge the White House and the President to do this as quickly as possible.
Senator, I'm sure you're well aware of how partisan our politics have become. And there are some who say, so the President goes to Congress and explains his plan, but Congress won't do very much because midterms are coming up and they don't really want to take a stand, and it'll turn into this game of political football.
I hope that's not the case. This is a situation that is a dire, direct threat to the United States, to our allies. This is something that should rise above politics. We've done that before following 9/11. We can do it again. We're looking at here a very serious threat to the health and safety of the American people and to our allies. We need to coordinate with them, and we need to have Congress rise above the political, even though it's close to an election, and do the right thing here for the future of America.
Thank you so much, Dan Coates and Lee Hamilton. I'll be right back.